Hi, welcome to the second video for the BreakOut ToolBox, where I'll be demonstrating how to use the indicator and to go into more detail about the functions that was covered in the first video. The first thing we're going to want to do is do a right click on your chart, go into your properties screen, select your common slide, and make sure that the show object description is selected. Once that's selected, click OK, and we're ready to start. What I'd like to demonstrate first is setting up a box trade. So with the indicator, you'll go into the indicators list. You'll double click on the BreakOut ToolBox. I want to make sure that the indicator emails me. I want it to alert me, and I want it to take a screenshot of my entries. So all of these three I'm going to set to yes, to true. And for a box setup, I'm going to use the use box trend lines. I'm going to set that to true. What this is going to do for me is it's going to enter a upper box range and a lower box range. Now how I have this set up is it's going to take the highest point of your screen and the lowest point of your screen regardless of what time frame you're on. So for setting the upper range, I'm going to double click on the trend line and I'm going to move it down to where I want it to trigger. I'd like it to trigger if it reaches and closes above this price. With the lower trend line, I like it right where it's at. So we're going to leave that in place. I'm going to double click and lock down the upper range of the box so that it doesn't move. A feature of all of the trend lines, is once you manually place the trend lines where you want them to go, they will not change as you move from time frame to time frame. They are locked in place until you manually move them again. And that concludes using a box setup with the indicator. Now what I'd like to show is several of the students or traders like to use channels. So in a channel trade, how can this indicator be of use? I would go to MetaTrader's channel and set up a channel with the tool that MetaTrader provides. That looks like a reasonable channel. I'll then go into the indicator and I want to use the notify above entry line and notify below entry line. I'm going to set both of those to true. Click OK and close. I'll click on the line to move it. And so here I'm going to lay the trend line from the indicator right on top of the channel. When it's in the place that I want it to be, I'm going to double click on it, which locks it in place. The same for the upper part of the channel. Now it's important to remember that these trend lines have two different functions, and I label them as such. So when price action closes below this entry line, when it reaches the entry line and when it closes below the entry line, it'll notify me. So I put this at the lower part of the channel. For the upper part of the channel, I put the other entry line, which is notify me if it closes above the entry line. Now how I've coded this in for the trend lines, since the price changes on a diagonal line as the angle changes, I've set this up so that on the current bar, price will change in accordance where that current bar is located along the angle of that trend line. So right now we are sitting at 0.6924 as a price. We see that also here within the trend line, and we also show that as price action moves, the pips away from that trend line will move. So it shows a distance that you are away from that trend line. So on the upper trend line, you're 106 pips away from it. On the lower trend line, you're 44 pips away from it. So that concludes how to use the indicator, the toolbox indicator, with channels. Let's take a look at how we can use it with chart patterns. So within a chart pattern, we're going to again use your notify above, notify below, and with this we're also going to use our stop loss, our take profit, and our break even. So I'm setting the notify at take profit to true. I'm setting the notify at stop loss to true. And I'm going to set the notify break even below for this one exercise. Okay. So we have our notify above entry line. So I'm going to go ahead and set this above the current price action that says if price action reaches or closes above, I want to be notified. We then set the lower or low entry line, and we now have a triangle chart pattern. This will notify if it reaches either one of the trend lines. It'll also notify if it closes above the upper or below the bottom one. Now, you'll notice here that the price shows that it's 124 pips away from the entry line. Once you move the trend line and set it into place, it requires price action to move at least 1 pip in order for it to calculate the range away from that new angle of your trend line. Once price action moved, it reset the buffers, and it now shows accurately that you are 52 pips away from your entry line. You'll also notice at the very bottom of the screen, I have overlaid both your take profit, your stop loss, and your break even all at the same location. Just like tools in a toolbox, I want those tools in the same place every time so that when I need them, I know where they are. At this point, I double click and I pull it off of the overlaid trend lines. I pull up a break even, and so I say at this point, this is a break even below. So I am, based on my analysis, believing, because we are getting lower highs, that the trend in the price action is going to fall below this lower trend line. So I'm looking to enter a sell trade below this entry line, and if it reaches and breaks below this price range right here, then I'm going to move my stop loss to break even. I now need to set my stop loss and my take profit. So I'm going to set my stop loss to notify me if price action reaches probably 10 to 15 pips above the highest high. I'm going to set my take profit right at this low spike right here that shows a hard resistance or hard support. So at this point, my trade is set up to notify me on an entry If it closes below this line, if it reaches and closes below my break even, I'm going to move my stop loss to break even, and then I plan on taking profit at 1.1306. This now concludes the functionality and use of the BreakOut ToolBox. I hope you find value in using this indicator, and I wish you happy trading.